So I was born in 1992. My dad started his own pump business, I believe, in 89 or 90. My whole life has been defined by being in the pump industry. Since I was in middle school, 9th grade, other kids had vacations and had summer break and played with their friends. And then I got to go work with my dad during summer, which I do love. I will say smelling glue and primer in a trench during summer brings me back to my summers with my dad.
So you're the guy to go to?
Yes, I like to think so. And if I'm not the guy to go to, I usually know the person that you need to go to. So whoever that is for whatever you may need.
So I'm dealing with clients that are looking to buy homes in this area of Ramona, and a lot of them have wells on them. Is there something they should do before they decide to purchase a home by like testing the well, or something they should look at?
So if you are looking at a property and it's fed by a well, or if it only has the well and not city water, there are the tests that have to be done for the sale of the property, which is the potability and the gallons per minute. And those are just two very small tests that need to be done to satisfy anything to do with the loan and the bank. And generally you'll want 3 gallons per minute was classically seen as enough for a well, but you can go down as little as 13/10 of a gallon per minute, and with a big enough storage tank, the standard 10,000 gallon, and if you have enough, or if you're gentle enough on the usage, that can certainly work for your family. A potability only tests for 3 things. That's total nitrates, and that has to be within a certain amount. Total coliform, which is the dirt-dwelling bacteria that live in the soils, thousands of different types. And then E. coli, which is E. coliform, which is the specific E. coli or coliform bacteria that we're looking for, and that would indicate septic intrusion. So just by having those 3 things of potability doesn't necessarily mean that the water is perfectly clean or as clean as you might want it to be. And one of those problems is often high iron. So if you look in your storage tank and it's all murky through the bottom, if you have stained orange fixtures, or manganese, which is a black element that's very inky and very sooty, we can actually treat those with different sorts of purification methods. I generally will install ozone purification, and that's a whole process that's pretty simple. If you have the right sort of equipment, we can easily install it and mitigate or eliminate many of the water purification and quality problems that you may have. Other than that, it's on the buyer to make sure that they're buying something within their needs. So much like a roof has a 20 or a 30-year lifespan, at 35 years, it doesn't necessarily mean the roof is leaking, but it just means that it's closer to the end of its life than the beginning. So a water system is much the same. Just due to being 30 or 40 or 50 years old, in some cases, that's just a water system. It's still working, but if it broke, in a year, that wouldn't be terribly surprising. So it's, again, buying anything used or secondhand, unless you've bought the pump system brand new, or unless it's a brand new house with a new pump system, it is then several years old. So it's crucial that the person purchasing the house have a conversation much like this one about what their water needs are, and if this water well resource is sufficient for what they're after. So if you want to put in a huge orchard, if you're going to have a huge lawn, but you have a 2 gallon per minute well, that's going to be problematic, sort of just like overspending versus what you make. So that's something you definitely want to take into account, because unlike city water, where you get to use as much as you're willing to pay for, if the well is only producing a gallon per minute, that's only a gallon per minute. Definitely speak directly with a well contractor so that you know what you're getting into if you purchase a property with a well.
If you do treat the water, does that totally get rid of the problem, or is there a chance that it will come back?
There's different levels, so obviously each person's case is going to be very different and very specific, like a tailored suit. But we can treat the water to a very high satisfaction level, safe to drink, pleasant to drink. I always recommend using the most pure water for your cooking and your drinking, but of course just getting it clean enough to shower, not leave stains in your tubs and sinks, and doing the whites should allow it to come out very clean and white, not dingy.
Yeah. So get your water tested.
Absolutely. You should know what's in your water, because I'm not here to tell you that something is in your water. I don't want to scare anybody. You don't know unless you test it. So if you want to know, test it. And again, potability is just the first three things: nitrates, total coliform, and E. coliform. So that's what we have agreed in society is safe to drink, but there's hundreds of things in your water that make it pleasant to drink.
What is the typical issue that usually pops up with a well or a pump?
A very common problem is simply a bug will get in a pressure switch. And a pressure switch is the part of the pump that senses the pressure in the piping and turns the pump on and off to keep up with demand. And the pressure switch will often get earwigs. Earwigs, spiders, ants, lizards, rats, all manner of creature can make it inside of the pressure switch. And that is probably a 50-50 shot when somebody calls me in the morning and says, I'm out of water. The first thing we do is ask them or instruct them how to clear their pressure switch. And again, it's a coin toss where oftentimes that will simply fix the problem and we're the big hero. But if it doesn't fix the problem, then oftentimes that's usually when we have to come out and do some deeper diagnosis. But a preventative maintenance for that is spraying some WD-40 in the pressure switch. We say as needed, which is generally, let's say, 1 to 3 months, but that's going to keep the bugs from entering the pressure switch and setting up shop, and it prevents having to pay for an expensive service call for something that you can easily prevent yourself.
The pressure switch issue completely turns off the water.
Totally off. So generally the customer, either the water system is working fine and nobody thinks about it, or the water system stops working and then they have to call. And there's not a huge in between. Sometimes there is, obviously, and we can get there before that there's a major problem, but generally the water system works until it stops. And if everything has been installed right, it can usually be something very small. There are normal things to service on the pump system, and most people aren't keeping up with the servicing. So something very small can happen to cause the whole pump system to not operate. Some of the wear items on the pump system is the pressure switch, the start capacitor, and the pressure tank. Those three items are very common to wear out or to fail or to have some sort of an issue, and they have a finite lifespan. So those are the items that you want to be servicing once a year. I tell my customers, you can have me come out once a year and take a look at everything, get the weeds away, ensure that everything's going to keep working. Those three items can and will fail and cause the whole system to not turn on.
Is there any other components that you recommend maintaining?
So you want to make sure that your irrigation system is synced up correctly with the well pump. So if the irrigation system is, let's say, 5 gallon per minute zones on drip, a lot of people have changed from, let's say, 20 gallon a minute sprinkler zones to 5 gallon a minute drip zones. Well, that's going to make a 30 gallon per minute, which is the average booster pump size, start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. And it's the cycling of a pump motor that actually causes the wear and the damage to the pump and the motor itself. So anytime you start the pump, you want to run it for as long as possible and then shut it off. If your irrigation system is such that the pump will start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, that is what's causing premature wear to your pump system. You should get 20 to 30 years out of a pump and a motor and the whole system if it was installed correctly. Anything less than 10 is problematic. Anything less than 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, that's a huge problem. My pump systems, the pumps themselves are warranted for 5 years. So anything less than 10, you should have checked out and make sure that everything as it should be.
So if you purchase a property with a couple acres and you want some landscaping, let's say about a half an acre worth, how many gallons per minute would be adequate for that kind of landscaping?
If you want to put in tropical plants and a putting green, then of course you're going to use a significant amount more water. So there's numbers like 30 gallons per square foot of water for a typical irrigation, whereas natural plant will only have about 1 gallon per year of water, which is significantly less.
So you hear about drought in California. Is there any reason to be concerned about a well drying up?
So with the California droughts, obviously you want to be concerned about the natural resources that you have. None of my customers have had to drill new wells for them being going dry or being dry. Any time that a customer has ran out of water, we'll say it's just due to the mechanical issue, broken pump, broken motor, something even more simple than that, bug in his pressure switch, and always have we been able to repair the mechanical problem and restore the water, no big deal. You certainly don't want to drill a new well based on one person's opinion on it being dry, because it's so expensive, and I have not seen that to be a big problem. You definitely want to make sure that you're not drilling a well that doesn't need to be drilled. That being said, we definitely want to protect and save our resource, which is the water. Now with all this rain that we've been getting lately, that definitely has a positive impact on the well. But of course, the drier the months and drier the years, that can also negatively impact the production.
So that's why it's important when you're picking out your landscaping, maybe you want to choose succulents over having something that takes up a lot of water, correct?
Irrigation takes 80 to 90% of your water. So your household usage is actually quite small compared to if you're irrigating your lawn and everything like that. So of course, the less amount of water that you require to put on your tropical plants, then the less energy it will take for you to pump that water. Because whereas the well water is not billed per gallon, you are still responsible for the wear and tear of the machinery and the power bill. The power bill is the most expensive thing to get your free well water.
Is the electricity expensive to feed the well water to your house?
It is generally always less expensive to have well water versus city water, just the way it's tiered, obviously. But tell that to somebody that just had to replace their well system, and they probably won't feel the same way. But it does, over time, it is cheaper to run a well than it is to have city water. Of course, there's doing a new system, there's always a huge upfront cost. And also, it's very good to point out that just because, again, the well water itself is not billed, you still have to pay for and maintain the machinery that is responsible for extracting and pressurizing the water.
So it's kind of like solar compared to regular electricity, right?
Right.
The investment up front, you might have a payment, but in the end, it's going to be cheaper and you're going to save money.
So if you have solar and you have plenty of solar, then effectively your water bill will be zero because the electricity is paid for and the water itself is paid for. And the machines, again, last 20 or 30 years with proper maintenance. So at that rate, yes, you have free water. But if you're paying for your electricity, then of course that needs to be factored in. And you'll see that the free water isn't completely free.
So when someone buys a new home, would you be able to come out and kind of assess the situation, make sure it was installed correctly, make sure everything is squared away?
Absolutely. So obviously when you're buying a property like that, it will tell you how long it's going to last, how many issues you may or may not have. But if the system is installed correctly, it will certainly last 20 to 30 years easily.
So is there anything else you would tell a homeowner to consider or to keep an eye on while they have a well?
For anybody that is buying a property with a well, or if you already have a property with a well, the best thing you can do is to reach out hopefully to us, and we can discuss your exact well and your exact conditions in depth. That's really the only way to get to the information that is exactly what you need for you. And that's how we like to treat all of our customers. We can sit here and give blanket statements, but if you actually want to know what's good for your well, how can we fix your issues and your concerns, then you can always give us a call, and I would love to chat and discuss options with you.
Well, thanks for sitting down with me. I appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.